You're listening to the Uncensored Direct Marketing Show. This show is designed for direct response marketers who want raw, unfiltered conversion tips and secrets to scale their offers profitably to reach their next million. I'm Maria Sparakis. I'm the founder of Direct Painted and your host. Now let's dive in. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today on Uncensored Direct Marketing. I have Rich Schefren, who is the guru of the guru to the gurus. I think that's how that's how I read it online. So Rich, I mean, pretty much everybody in direct response and online marketing knows who you are, but I'll give a brief intro and then I'll let you say a little bit about yourself. So Rich has coached pretty much all the gurus that everyone follows in direct response, Russell Brunson, Ryan Deiss, Dan Kennedy, Jay Abraham, and so many more influencers in our industry. So you've also invented the automated webinar in 2009. Feels like a long time ago, but that's pretty recent in relative terms. And you scaled just an insane amount of businesses to 7 figures and beyond. So that's just a quick intro. And I know you have so much more. So I just want to ask you just if you can give us a little rundown about, what's been keeping you busy in the last 10 or 15 years.
Well, I started a company called Strategic Profits back in 2004. I partnered with Jay Abraham and Dan Kennedy, but I didn't really coach them. That would be a little bit more than what I've really done. I've also worked for Agora Publishing for the last 17 years as well, and have a testimonial from them, $1 billion testimonial, and help them grow to a $2 billion company. And what else? Invented the automated webinar in 2007, not 2009. And I sold my company to Agora, or half of it. Then I bought it back. And in the interim, I sold it in 2017, got busy on some projects. We didn't launch until 2019. We launched a product called Steal Our Winners. And at the end of 2019, I bought the business back from Agora. And so Steal Our Winners is still our flagship. We've got a lot of cool things coming up, but every month what Steal Our Winners delivers each and every month are tactics and strategies that are currently crushing it that the world doesn't know about. And that's important because every marketing tactic over time degrades, especially online, and it happens faster and faster. And the average amount of time that it takes for a strategy or tactic to get into a course is several years. So VSLs, for example, John Benson invented that at the end of 2005. The first course on VSLs wasn't until 2010. When we invented automated webinars in 2007, like the programs that like Webinar Jam and things like that didn't come around until 2010 or 2011. Wow. And so there are many things like that where there's this ample delay, and in that delay time is when actually the strategies work best and it requires the least amount of effort. And so that's when we try to deliver our strategies and tactics to our clients. And we have 120 contributors, some of the names that you mentioned, plus a whole lot more. Really the best of the best in all categories of online marketing throughout the world. And so that's what we do.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, just from yourself and your background, I'm sure there, I like I told you earlier, I went through the rabbit hole of your content and I was like, holy shit, this is like intense stuff. And actually everybody characterizes you, and people, I heard a lot of people say, Rich is very intense. And I was like, wow, I didn't get it until I started watching the content and so forth. So, I mean, I've watched a lot of the Steal Our Winners stuff, and it's fantastic. I was watching something on YouTube actually, and how to kind of scale your YouTube channel and so forth. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I literally watched maybe the first 15, 20 minutes and had like a page of notes. So you're doing a very good service to everybody in the space. So thanks for coming out that product. A lot of people talk about your history and, it's all available online. I'm actually just curious about something that like maybe isn't so obvious. Like, for example, everybody has a defining moment in life, mm-hmm. like something that kind of changes them. For me, we briefly spoke, but it was, I joined, the team at Pornhub in 2005. Mm-hmm. And that was a defining moment in my life. It was like, oh shit, like I didn't even know what I was getting myself into, got into that. So is there any like kind of really big, like aha or defining moment that kind of got you to the path where you are today?
Well, there definitely was a like game-changing event, I guess, and that really was when I wrote the Internet Business Manifesto, which was the first free report that I ever released. It also coincided with, I guess, really like the beginning of giving things away for free online, other than like a 5-day mini course or something like that, because that's what people used to opt in to get, like 5 days worth of emails. And I wrote this report back when I had just finished a coaching program with like Mike Filsame and Ryan Dice and a bunch of those guys. And I had just finished, and I had this big project with Agora 3 months later. And I didn't really have a list, and I didn't have any front end customers, and I wanted to coach a group of people, and I was hoping maybe I could get like a dozen people or something like that to coach for this 3-month period before I started this project with Agora. And I decided that I would write a report to try and get those, dozen clients. And the report ended up, I posted it to my blog. It was 31 pages long, and it ended up going viral. So I didn't get a dozen clients, but I got thousands of clients. And really, my life was very different the week before I launched the manifesto to a week after I launched the manifesto. And as far as notoriety, as far as income and everything else. And I would say that, I really rode that pretty hard for about 6 years, from 2006 to 2012. And I'd say like after 2009, that's like when we had our webinar really kicking butt. And so I kind of faded away and back into the background. And then in 2012, when I kind of semi-retired and took 5 years off, then I became very unknown to a whole group of people who started in 2012 and beyond. So I'm well known to people who have been around like pre-2012, and there's a lot of people though that don't know me.
The
these
dinosaurs,
days.
like
Yeah.
me.
So yeah, I'd say that was probably the biggest game-changing thing though that's ever happened to me. I mean, I really never thought that would be the outcome. I wasn't like aiming for that. I was just hoping to get a dozen clients, so it was kind of cool.
Oh, that's cool. Well, yeah. I mean, and what was like when you were doing this was just like a test. You just said, "Oh, let me just try this out, see how it works. If I write this manifesto and give it for free." What was your goal? Your goal was just to get a dozen people to kind of follow it,
to want to be coached by me. And and I had this. So one of the owners of Agora one of the founders is a gentleman by the name of Mark Ford, who also goes by the pen name Michael Masterson. And Mark is like a surrogate dad to me, as well as Jay Abraham. Those two guys have been my primary mentors in my life, both business-wise, but also personally as well. And so Mark lives in Delray Beach, where I live. And so we get together quite often and smoke cigars. And he's kind of academically oriented like I am, I guess, in a certain way. And both of us like to come up with theories all the time. And so we sometimes spend time coming up with theories. And we were talking about marketing one time. And we had this thought that if you sell something because you believe in it, not that you believe in it because you sell it, but the other way, you sell it because you believe in it, that you believe that your prospects would greatly benefit from the thing that you offer them. And your prospects are not, they're not buying, not all of them, then odds are it's because they haven't reached the same conclusions that you've reached. And the reason that you've reached the conclusions that you've reached is that you've had, certain experiences that have led you to that conclusion, whatever it is, whether you've learned certain things, noticed certain things, spoken to certain people, whatever it is, you didn't come to this belief out of nowhere. And so one way of looking at marketing is taking your prospects through an abbreviated, accelerated version of that so that they can come to the same conclusion. So that's like one thought that I I've had ever since we had that conversation. And actually, I've used that when I'm teaching marketing sometimes to people who are brand new. Like, it's a good way for them to start thinking about it.
Yeah.
So that was like a point of reference. And then there was the second point of reference that I was listening to a Dan Kennedy program on coaching and consulting. And I'll never forget this because there was a product, right? And then there was like a series of 4 calls. And on one of the calls, someone asked a question. I was listening to a recorded version, so I wasn't live, right?
Yeah.
Someone asked a question that was the question that had I had the opportunity to ask, and had I asked a question, this would have been the question I asked. And the question was, I have no front-end products. I'm afraid of taking the material from my coaching program and putting them in my front-end products because I'm afraid I'll cannibalize my front-end product. I'll cannibalize my coaching program. Yeah. And I don't remember exactly how he worded the question, but that was the question. I do remember verbatim what Dan said because that kind of got seared in my mind. He just kind of, first he laughed at him. He's like, he chuckled, and then he said, "Bubba, you just don't get it." And then he said, "You put your best ideas in your front end products. That's what's going to get them to want to join your coaching program." And so I had these 2 thoughts, right? Like, that marketing is just taking people through an accelerated version of your own experience. And this other thing about that, getting your best ideas in front of people is what gets people to want to join your coaching program. And so I just combined those 2, removed the idea of charging people for a front-end product, and decided to write a report that would literally give people a perspective of some of the things that I had experienced, that I noticed, that I believed that when other people saw it, they would feel that, oh, if I did that, my life would be easier and I would make more money. And so, like, by taking people through process maps, which nobody at that time had seen, and then showing them what swim lanes are and how like a process could be broken apart in my business, that showed like the handoffs and when and who, and people would see that and say, wow, that would be a lot. If I had those, that would be a lot easier than the next thing. And so, like, after a couple of different experiences like that, having read the report, they would come to a conclusion that I came to, which was they'd be making more money if they understood business the way I did. And so that then led people to that epiphany. And it was one of the reasons why it went as viral as it did. It wasn't really something that I did, right? But like, it was that people found answers in it to problems that they were struggling with, and then passed it along to other people that they cared about. They didn't care about me. They cared about their friends, and they passed along the report because they thought it could help their friends. And so that really was, my hope was that I would get a dozen clients. I had no idea, right? Like, but, obviously it worked out a lot better than that.
I definitely resonate with that myself. Like, in my business, the same thing. I always give people tons of free advice. And they're like, you could be charging a lot of money for this. I'm like, it's okay. We'll find another way to make money. Yeah. There's always, like, if you provide value, people are going to come back for stuff. So that's really, like, obviously it was avant-garde when you did it, because back then, nobody was giving anything for free. It was like, you got to pay for everything except porn memberships, because we were doing those for free for a couple of days.
It's like, if you know your top, it's like, I do a live stream twice a week, and while I don't always know what I want to cover in any given week, I'm not concerned with sharing everything I know. Yeah. Like, if you're a true expert in your field, sharing stuff, like, I'm always learning new stuff. And so whatever, I could share everything I know today, and in a week from now, there'll be stuff that I didn't know today, and so if you're an expert and you're always growing your field, it shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that actually takes me to my next question. It's good that you mentioned that point. So, you're loving to learn and kind of keep kind of abreast of everything new. Since you're teaching other gurus, and you're kind of seeing all these people that are very successful in the business, what are like the top kind of habits and characteristics that somebody, that you've coached or that's in your circle that makes them successful? Like, I'm sure a lot of these people that you are in your circle have very common traits. What would you say they are?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that like a great portion of them have ADD, but I would say that like, when I started coaching, because I was the first or one of the first business coaches online. Um, the field wasn't as well developed, I guess you could say, as it is now. And so when I started coaching, I was bringing a lot of material that at that time, I guess, was somewhat new to the entrepreneurial market. And so a lot of the stuff that I've taught has been like absorbed by the marketplace, I would say, right? Like, 15 years ago when I was teaching, like build a business around your strengths, that was something relatively new. That's not really anything new now. So I would say a lot of my ideas have kind of made it into the marketplace, but there are some that haven't. And some of the ones that haven't, I believe are at least as critical, if not more critical. So the first thing I would say is that one of the most common mistakes and one of the most common mistakes that entrepreneurs make across the board, whether they're my clients or someone else's, is that when they think about the business that they want to build and they're designing this business and they have this dream of this business, they often are not really dreaming about who they are as much as they're dreaming about some mythical version of themselves that they're then building a business around, like someone other than who they currently are. And that's a big mistake. And so where that tends to come up is when I'm talking to an entrepreneur and they feel like there's a problem with them, or that they're disappointing their business, or that they can't be motivated, or whatever it is. More often than not, it's because the business was designed not around who they really are, but who they would like to be. And so, that is a huge mistake. And, a book that came out like over a decade ago, it could be even a lot longer, I don't remember, but it was called Change or Die. That was the title. And it was written by a doctor and it was about like when someone is given that choice, like you either are going to die if you don't change, 90% don't change, they die. Yeah, like, after the fourth bypass heart attack, and they're told like, look, you either have to get healthy or you're going to drop dead. 90% do drop dead. Wow. And that's just because personal change is really difficult. And you don't want to put your business success after some goal that's difficult to achieve. That just doesn't make any sense. And it's not a recipe for happiness either.
For sure.
So like to give like more dimension to this, there are two examples from my own personal life that are the easiest to share, although I've worked with a ton of clients on this and I could share their stories, but I'd prefer not, just because, I don't necessarily want to advertise people's weaknesses. Yeah. But so two of the weaknesses I have, right, is that it's very like I'm a perfectionist as relates to content or courses that I'm creating that I believe like will be long-term. And then it becomes like or even a presentation. For some reason, presentations for me, I never finish until like the exact last minute that I can actually physically finish. And sometimes that means like me walking to the stage with my laptop in my hand, like making the final change. Wow. And so like if you locked me in a hotel room for a month and told me to create a course, like I'd still be messing with it on day 30, and so knowing that about myself, that's going to be a challenge, right? And that we have to have courses though, dictated that like my marketing strategy would be one where like all the products I ever created, I created live. I sold it first. Okay. Showed up where like, and coaching programs that I created, I actually sold it, delivered it live because it needed to be delivered live for me to hit the deadlines, and then it would be finished. And that's the only way I ever created it, because I knew that another way would not work for me. Sometimes that was unpleasant, but we made it work as best, and in certain ways better than other things could work, because like that was the constraint that we had to kind of manage. Another one is that I'm not money motivated, and like money is not the thing for me at all. And once I have enough, and my level of enough is not like disproportionate to what I make, it's much less than what I make. But in order for a business to be effective, the business better be about money. Like, we have to make a profit, And so I could either try and change who I am, or I could just figure out another way. And so, like, I haven't yet done it, but we're getting ready to, like, with the current strategic profits. But before I sold strategic profits to Agora, and before like all that, we always had a very aggressive profit sharing program. And I've had that in my other businesses before, where like basically turning everyone on the team into someone who is, if they're money motivated, like they're, a meeting was once a week, and my whole team was figuring out how we're going to maximize our profits this month, because like I always paid monthly, like the profit sharing, like 1 month behind. And like, so my whole team would meet every Friday, look at the financials, figuring out like, who can we promote? What can we do? And I never even went to those meetings. But the team would take on that part because of like me recognizing that this is a weak point of myself. Like, as it is as an entrepreneur, it's a weak point to not care about money, to not be money motivated. That's easily gotten around by figuring out some other way that the business needs to be money motivated without you being money motivated. But if you don't make that change, now it's like I have that weekly responsibility of looking at the financials and figuring out how we're going to maximize. And it's going to be something I don't enjoy, probably not going to do it as frequently as I need to. Yeah. And so it's going to be problematic. And so I would say, of all the things that I've seen, that's probably the biggest mistake. And really, like in any area where you as the entrepreneur feel like you've disappointed or gotten in the way of or hampered the growth of your business, more often than not, it's about looking at who you are as a person. And is that really the best thing for you to be doing? Or is there another way for the business to get it done? Right? Like there is like on a very superficial level, right? Like you as the entrepreneur have a to-do list, but that doesn't mean that everything on that list is for you to do or the business to get done. And the more things on the list that you don't have to do, the better. And so understanding that, and understanding that there are things that you should always do, and then there are things you should never do, are critically important for an entrepreneur to know specifically about themselves and about what are those things. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing of all the things.
So, I mean, you touched upon a couple of interesting things. First, I mean, your uncanny ability to know what you should not be doing and figuring out a way to get it done. That's obviously, a trait that I see commonly in successful people myself. Like I talk to a lot of successful direct response marketers in my day-to-day, and I can tell, it's like almost master delegation and knowing, how to get things done without getting that done. But you mentioned, that money doesn't motivate you. And so what does motivate you? What is the driving force before, like when you get up and you're like, this is why I'm doing this?
Well, there's a couple different things. So the first thing I'd say along those lines, I'm going to give you a longer answer. So it's not going to be a direct answer, but okay, it will be direct by the time it's done. So I went through like another reason why I had decided to exit the market for a while in 2012. One, we had been crushing it and like really didn't see the need to keep going. But the other reason is that I started down the path of a midlife crisis. And that started because I had turned 40 and, I had already achieved everything that I had wanted to achieve, like goals in life, like by the time I was 40, like by the time I was by the time the manifesto came out and everything else as well. And so at 40, I recognized that I really wasn't happy. And that was problematic because I didn't even know at that point what to do to be happy, because I had all these goals that I had achieved and now I wasn't happy. And I'm like, oh shit, that's not good. And so I kind of realized that the achievement of any goal really just made me happy for like a week or two, no matter how big of a deal it was. And that therefore goals didn't really make that much sense to me. So I tried not having any goals that really was completely ineffective. So then I switched to really thinking about like, when did I feel most alive? Like, when did shit just like come together for me and I was like on point? And when I really looked at it, and I've been keeping a journal for like 30 years. So like a lot of these questions, like figuring out my weak points, these are easier for me because I've got books and books and books of my life.
Journal
right?
every day?
Almost every day,
Wow.
It's not like a religious activity for me, but I try to make time every day. And most days I do. So I'd say that totally lost my train of thought here for a second.
Sorry,
so give me a second.
I cut you off.
So what I then realized was when I was most alive, when I felt most alive, right, I was in pursuit of something. So I realized that, this is very cliche, but like, when they talk about goals, they talk about it's the journey, not the destination. But to me, like the journey is everything and the destination really is nothing. And so for me, the way I choose goals is really just on their impact on being able to get me out of bed and be excited. That's the only, like the idea of having a goal that that doesn't motivate me, to me is absurd, because then what's motivating you? Because like, it's not the getting it of it. That's going to disappear after you've had it for a week. So the only purpose for me to have a goal is that it gets me out of bed in the morning. And if it gets me out of bed in the morning, excited to be doing whatever the hell I'll be doing, then it's serving its role. Right. And so I've worked with a bunch of entrepreneurs where like they might have had a goal of building like a $2 million business, and we could simplify that to like 10,000 a day. And like, because they had like a phone room and stuff like that. And it's like, your goal is to get to 10,000 each day as quickly as possible. And then your day is over, right? To make it more of a game and make it something that is much more real in the moment. So I would say that like, for me, that's the way I look at goals. So, but what I would also say is that what I'm very interested in bigger trends overall. And I've always fooled myself into believing that that I'm going to have a much greater impact than I'm actually probably going to have. When I was in the clothing business, I thought I was totally going to change the way retailing was done. I think I made some changes that actually did like find its way into places, but like I never had that kind of impact, right? When I opened up my hypnosis centers, I really thought we were going to change the way like mental health was dealt with. We totally didn't, but in the moment, that's what fueled me, going forward. And I would say that like, I feel the same now. With Steal Our Winners, at first it was actually what we were delivering, but now it's much more about what we're building towards. And so, it took like a year of the product and delivering it to really figure out like, where do we want to take this? Like conceptually it's strong, but like, where do we want to ride it and where are we taking it? And so that is the next big thing that I'm excited about. And because I believe like we're taking the best models from Netflix and how they use data, from Audible and their business model and the way they charge with credits and what you get, and taking all of these things that I've seen work in much bigger companies, and now bring them into our world of information products and things like that. And it hasn't been done in our space, using data to the point, and this won't be phase 1 or phase 2, but where we'll ultimately get to, where funnels are being built on the fly based on what actions the person just took the step before and what we know about that person to the next step, right? And we can have that amount of data, and we've built a platform to acquire that kind of data. And so now, like, the idea of what we're building becomes something much bigger that potentially can have greater impact. And for me at this stage, that's, I like to build things that impact the way others do things.
So it's like, did you say like kind of like a personalized funnel? Let's say we're buying supplements and I come into your funnel and it's like for a weight loss supplement and you kind of know a lot about me. You would personalize my funnel to send me to different places based on my behaviors?
Well, something like that, but different than that. Like I can show you real quick. I can't show too much because my team will kill me, but I can,
don't worry about it. I'm just curious because that sounds like really cool. Like that would be like personalized, almost like personalized selling. Like
it's a little bit different than what you're thinking, but I'm more than happy I'll share it with you if you just want to. Is this going to be on video or is it going to be on audio?
There's audio and video. We're both. Okay, so we're on YouTube.
So let me show it to you quick because then I'll explain what we're doing so that, because you might have a different perspective you might be thinking differently than what I'm talking about. That's
sure. I'm really curious about this. I'm sure everybody, if you're listening on audio, then head on to YouTube so you can see what Rich is going to share with us.
All right. So Steal Our Winners, the way it was packaged or still is packaged is that each month we deliver anywhere from 8 to 12, sometimes 7, but numerous strategies and tactics that are currently crushing it. And right now, the way they're delivered is like in an issue, and it's completely wrong because it kind of gives the implication that you should go through the whole thing, which you shouldn't. And it also is not, there's no intelligence built into it because we were using a outside platform. So what we've done, and so we're just really beginning the process. We actually just sold a program where we're letting a bunch of people kind of like look over our shoulder as we do this. But we've created a Netflix style version of it. It looks like this. And this is the homepage of the actual, of Steal Our Winners, or will be, right? Okay. And so every single segment that we've ever created, which right now there are 180, each one has been edited. There's a preview for it, right? Shows like what, this is 5 easy optimizations to increase your high ticket funnels performance by 38%, right? And then in here, it talks about like the time it would take and et cetera. And so there's ones on podcasts, there's on every single thing that we talk about, right? And this allows us to build like products on the fly, right? Just by creating new collections of these. And when someone first comes to this page, right, there'll be some kind of bribe offer. Maybe it's they can pick any of the strategies once they tell us, their, a couple questions like, their email address and all that kind of stuff. But then also potentially like what they do. Are they an entrepreneur, an agency owner, a media buyer, or something like that? Who their 3 favorite gurus are, what their 3 biggest challenges are. And then that homepage will never look the same again. Like it'll immediately switch to the gurus they follow and, the problems that they're trying to solve. And then once we start having intelligence, right? Like agency owners that have this problem tend to like this video the most. And then they generally watch this next video, or they start with this video and they cancel that. And then they go to this video. So like, we'll have all that intelligence. And so when you recognize that every interaction, like on a website or anywhere else, there's 2 components to it. There's the opportunity to leverage all the information that you have up until that very moment to like serve whatever. And then whatever action that person takes is new data to update like all the data that you already have. So everything is a test, every even single action, and the system is constantly learning. And so like the overall endpoint is that this is what I see as, so this is where like, for me, getting excited about impact and like, because I believe that there have been a couple of attempts to make these kinds of sites, but they've been course-based. And I think that totally defeats the whole purpose. Because
like
if you go to Netflix
of the world, and
if you go to Netflix and every movie is 10 hours,
how
often are you going into Netflix? Like what we have to recognize is that once, like I had this one person recently come up to me after I had given a presentation at Traffic and Funnels, which is an information company. And I was speaking at their mastermind, and there was a guest there who came over to me and said, like, is Steal Our Winners for me? Like, I'm brand new. And I said, well, that really depends. He said, well, what does that depend on? And I said, well, like, let's say you wanted to put a webinar in your business. If you don't know anything about webinars, you're not going to learn it all from Steal Our Winners. Like, you need a course, and a course will walk you through everything you need to know about, like, how to put a webinar in your business and what you want to focus on and all those things. But once you have that webinar in your business and you want it to do better, now where are you going? Because if you go to a course, right, 90% will be overlap. The tactics will be a couple of years old at the minimum, right? Versus, would you like to know what the top 10 webinar experts out there are doing right now, like today, to make their webinars work? And the strategies that they found most effective to get people to register, to get people to show up, to get people to stay on, to get people to buy on it. Like, if you want to know those, which will be completely worthless if you don't like have a webinar, but so it's one or the other, right? Like, and at first you need a course, but like in most areas of expertise, most people do not want to just consistently go through courses. So I've begun to see a move towards this. Like, no one in our industry has moved towards this, but in the medical profession, there's sites now of doctors and different surgeons sharing different strategies for different surgeries, like how they do different things. And they're short little videos. And this doesn't exist in any, like, so this is, to me, like the introduction of a new way of like delivering content, and therefore also changes the game of the business model and everything else. So I think it's an ADD thing of mine, but like, if everyone's going this way, I want to go that way, even if this way is easier. Like, I just want to do things differently. And so when I get the opportunity to do something different that I think is right, and then that is what gets me super juiced and gets me excited. It gives me the opportunity to make a dent in the universe, no matter how small that little dent is.
Well, I mean, I think it's pardon, my language, fucking genius, because I agree. I go down the Udemy kind of hole when I'm looking for something. I mean, I joined masterminds for that exact experience myself, because I just need an answer now about something I'm doing now. I don't want to watch 3 hours of some guy talking in 2019 about something that doesn't like apply anymore. So I think, I definitely, obviously, everybody listening knows that you're ahead of the curve, for so much. So, I mean, this is, I'm definitely, I love already the content that I saw. So I'm sure this is going to kill it. Hope you found today's session valuable. If you have any questions for me or just want to connect, please feel free to visit my website, mariasparagis.com. That's MariaSparagis.com. I'd love to hear what you're working on, so drop me a line on any hot button issues your business is experiencing. And remember, don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once.